So now officially, I can start this presentation, this webinar. My name is Sławka Tymosiewicz. I'm originally from Poland, and now I'm living in Australia, in beautiful Sydney, and I have the pleasure and honor to be your host for today and moderator for this meeting to make sure that everything is running smoothly and beautifully. And today we have beautiful guest speakers. One of our guest speakers, Carla Perez. So she will be sharing information about Kent Institute Australia and the courses that are run there and how to apply for those courses. But of course, here we are all gathered to really listen to Benoît Vergassi, PhD, who is our lecturer and course coordinator of IT for our information technology field at Kent Institute Australia. And Benoît is, I'm so grateful that on Saturday, he gave us his time to present and share his knowledge with us about cybersecurity and its importance in today's life. I can't wait to look, to listen to this information because it's so crucial for all of us to be aware of the importance, the necessity of staying safe, how use of digital media can put us in danger, how digital world creates opportunities, but at the same time, we have to be very aware of the danger that it can bring with it as well. So without further delay, I'm welcoming Dr. Benoît and being so grateful that he is joining us today to share his knowledge. Thank you so much, Benoît.
All right, welcome guys. So let's get started. So welcome to the masterclass on importance of cybersecurity in the digital world, right? How many of you have actually heard about the latest hack that's happened in Twitter? Has anyone heard about a particular hack that has happened on Twitter in 2 months ago? Anyone? So I got a few people, like 4 or 5 people have heard about it. Some of them haven't. Let's see what happened. All right. So on July 15th, 2020, right, there was a tweet by Joe Biden. Joe, I'm sure most of you are aware of who Joe Biden is. So he's a presidential candidate for the Democrats in the US. So he's running for elections. That's coming up in November this year. So he's tweeting, "I'm giving back to the community. All Bitcoins sent to the address below will be sent back doubled. If you send me $1,000, I'll send back $2,000, right? I'm only doing this for the next 30 minutes. Wow, Joe Biden, he's a rich person. And so he's a presidential candidate. And so he wants to give to the community. So that's good, right? Then you might have heard about Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk is the CEO for Tesla, right? And he's like, well, I'm feeling generous today. So, and he's also a very rich person. So because of COVID-19, I'm giving charity, right? So I'll double any BTC payment. BTC basically is Bitcoin, right? Send to my Bitcoin address for the next 4 hours. Good luck and stay safe out there. Well, Elon Musk is feeling very generous, right? What about Apple, a company, one of the richest company in the world, which got, it's $1 trillion company, right? So they are feeling generous as well. They want to support the community by sending you Bitcoins. What about Barack Obama, one of the most famous presidents in the world? I'm giving back to the community due to COVID-19. So all you have to do is send $1,000 to Barack Obama, and he will personally send you back $2,000 in the form of Bitcoin. Now, isn't this generous, right? What happened here? How is this possible? So many famous people are sending back to the community. So what has happened here is that Twitter got hacked, right? So these are all Twitter accounts. It's not that every single person here got hacked individually. It's what happened is the Twitter company got hacked, and that hackers got access to all these famous people's accounts. And that person was able to send out tweets. And finally, he was able to get away with roughly $180,000 US, right? This attack was done by a 17-year-old kid. So he was arrested and then within 2 weeks, but it was done by a 17-year-old kid. Most of you would be around that age, right? So someone your age managed to hack into Twitter and post messages like we are seeing on screen. This is a major threat that we are facing today. In today's class, what we'll learn is how did this person actually manage to do this? To do that, we'll first give you an introduction on what is security, what kind of terminologies are used in security, so that you understand when we say use of terminology, like say threat vector, you would understand what is a threat vector. Then we look at who are the threat actors, what kind of attacks are out there. Specifically, we look at two categories of attacks like malware attack and social engineering attack. We'll briefly look at how vulnerable we are today, how to defend against these attacks, and what about the social media and cybersecurity. So these are the topics I'll be covering today. What is security? Security means it is used to keep you free from danger. That's the goal of security. Now, how you achieve security? So it's a process that achieves that freedom of goal is also known as security. Now, when we talk about the information age or information security, there are certain tasks that are required to secure the information in digital format. These can now be manipulated by some microprocessor, or this could be stored in some storage device, and this information could be transmitted over network, right? So there are different places where you can actually secure your information. Now, whenever you try to achieve security, what comes to your mind? Like, okay, I want to make something secure. I want to lock it up. So that's the first thing that comes to your mind. I want to lock it up. I'm going to put it in a box so that nobody can touch it. Now, there is a trade-off. Every time you implement a security system or a security protocol or any security tactics or techniques, this comes with a compromise. And the compromise that you're making is convenience. For example, to secure your home, what do? You lock your home, right? When you leave the home. Now, when you come back, can you just walk back into your home when you come back into the house? You can't. It would be convenient if the door kind of recognizes you straight away and then opens the door for you. But you have to put in your key and then open the door and then walk back in. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, right? So other than keeping the door open. So you're trading off convenience or usability, if you want to get technical, to make things more secure. You want to make it even more secure, you may need multiple layers of security. This is the basic premise behind what is security. And irrespective of which domain you look at, whether you're talking about securing your home, you're talking about securing your valuables, or whether you're talking about securing digital information, it's all, the principle is the same. You're going to want to keep that, your asset, free from any danger. Let's look at some kind of terminologies that are used in security. What is an asset? An asset is an item that has value. Now, for example, at home, you have a scooter. So your scooter is an asset. Now, a threat is a type of action that has potential to cause harm. So then you can have a threat actor. It's a person or an element with the power to carry out a threat. The threat actor is a person, like for example, your thief who is coming to steal your scooter is a threat actor. He can come in to and use a threat and basically steal your scooter. Then there are some vulnerabilities. So vulnerability is a flaw or weakness that allows a threat actor to bypass the security. How are you going to secure your scooter? You can secure your scooter by putting it inside your fence. So you have a house fence outside your house, and that's protecting your scooter from getting stolen. Now, if there's a hole in your fence, what can happen? Somebody can sneak in through that hole and then steal your scooter. So that is your threat vector, the means by which an attack can occur. The thief trying to sneak in through the hole to get to the scooter is known as threat vector. Then risk, or risk is basically a situation that involves exposure to some type of danger. So essentially, you leaving the scooter unprotected or leaving the scooter outside the garage is a risk, right? So which means you're exposing your scooter to be potentially stolen by a thief. So this is known as risk. Based on this concept, there are certain analogies that you can look for in information security. Let's say asset is basically a scooter. Now, in information security, it could be an employee database. So if a company has a list of employees and their data or the information is stored in some database in a disk somewhere, that is an asset of the organization. A company can have their trade secrets that are stored in some disk, in some database in the network. That is an asset. Now, what's a threat? The threat is that someone could steal that data. Who can steal this? Like what's your threat actor? The threat actor could be a hacker who's hacking into this network to get that data. It could also be natural disasters like hurricanes or cyclones. That is also a threat to your data. Threat doesn't necessarily mean, well, somebody has to, like what you see in a sci-fi movie where somebody would actually go in and hack. It's not always the hacker who is causing damage. It could be natural disasters. So if there's a natural disaster that has happened and the building collapses, well, anybody can walk in and then take the disk and walk away. That is also a threat. Vulnerability, for example, in case of your scooter example, is basically your hole in the fence. But in case of information security, it's a defect in the software that is being utilized. Next is threat vector, which is how you how you do the attack, right? Which is climbing through the hole in the fence. Or now it could also be access the web server passwords through some flaw in the operating system. And finally, the risk is the scooter getting stolen, or in case of information security, with the virus or the infection of stolen data, right? Either the virus infects your system or your data gets stolen. Okay. Now let's look at what kind of threat actors are out there, right? So there are different types of threat actors. The terminology threat actor is a generic term used to describe individuals who launch attacks against other users and their computers. Most of the time, this is done for some financial gain, but it's not always the case. Some threat actors who are trying to cause damage is not there to do some financial gain. They may have other reasons. There are different categories of threat actors. This could be vary depending on what kind of attributes they have, what kind of funding resources they have, whether this threat actor is coming from within an organization or from outside the organization. What is their intent? What is their purpose? Or what is their motivation to do that threat or to post that threat? All of this matters when it comes to categorizing threat actors. Let's look at the first type of threat actor, which is basically script kiddies. It's a fancy name for basically people who basically lack a serious knowledge of computers, but they know they can just download scripts from internet and then basically or softwares from the internet, and then just basically use that software to do the hacking. So if you look at the amount of skill that is required to do attacks in the internet, what has been seen is that nearly 13% of the attacks that are happening all over the world doesn't require any skills whatsoever. So you don't really need to know much about cybersecurity or anything. You just need to know about computers. You don't really need to know anything about the vulnerabilities of operating system or vulnerability of a security system to actually pose a threat and do an attack. There are tools available online that are, if you know where to go and look, you can just go find those tools and you can attack using those tools. So that's roughly 13% of what's happening. Nearly 28% requires really like small amount of skill set, right? So you have some knowledge about how computers work and how to actually bypass security. Roughly 44% require moderate skills, and only 15% of all the attacks that are happening is require you to have very high skills, right? So that's a fine niche, or it's basically a really small portion of the attacks that are happening all over the world that requires you to have very high skills. Essentially, more than 40% requires either low or no skills whatsoever. The next type of threat actor is what is known as hacktivist. So a hacktivist is an attacker who attacks for ideological reasons. An ideological reason is, for example, I have a concept, or I have an ideology, or I have a principle, and if a particular government or an organization does not believe in the same principles as me, or does not believe in the same ideologies as me, I may not like it, and I want to show my displeasure towards that particular government, or I want to show that I don't like this government. I want to tell them that, okay, I don't like this. I don't like what you guys are doing as a government. And then these hacktivist organizations, or what a hacktivist do is, they would go and attack the government's website or a company's website, and then they can deface it. So defacing means they can write whatever they want on their website, right? So you've seen this quite a lot happen on Wikipedia. So a lot of people's Wikipedia pages get modified by hacktivists, talking about basically changing their background and putting some funny commentary to make them look really bad or terrible. Okay, so this is known as a hacktivist. Another scenario where they can do is, if you don't like a particular bank, you can go and disable the bank's account, right? Because, hey, you guys, the bank stopped allowing me to use their account to do my activities. If anybody gets annoyed or does not like what a particular organization or a particular country or a particular government is doing, a hacktivist would go and hack into their websites and then change the content to basically make a statement. Now, one of the most common hacktivist group that is available that's seen on the web is known as Anonymous. So you would have seen this emblem that's on screen, which is an emblem for this group known as Anonymous. And they are very famous, and they have been doing extensive attacks against pretty much any government which does anything that they do not like. So whether it is passing a law that is hurting the people, or whether it is passing any a person who is coming into power who they do not like, who can cause damage to the economy, they will express their displeasure towards that particular government by hacking their website and then making it known that, hey, we are here and we do not like what you guys are doing. So this is known as a hacktivist. The next type of threats actors are basically nation state actors. A nation state actor is basically an attacker that's commissioned by governments to attack an enemy government's information system. So this happens quite a lot. In Australia, for example, very recently, the Australian government has actually acknowledged this. So 2 months ago, the Prime Minister of Australia came out in a press conference and he said, we are being attacked by a foreign country ever since the COVID-19 virus fiasco happened. Some foreign government did not like the stance that was taken by the Australian government regarding how they were handling COVID-19 and what kind of international diplomatic stance they were taking. Because of this, a foreign government tried to attack Australian government. Now, there is no official confirmation or statement from the Australian government which says which is the country that was attacking, but it was made clear that a foreign nation is trying to attack or hack into Australian systems. And funnily enough, you can search this online for yourself and find out this information, which is in Australia, a research or study was conducted by researchers regarding when the attacks were happening against Australian companies and Australian government. And what they noticed is most of the attacks against the Australian governments happens between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. or basically the business hours of a different time zone, of a different country's time zone. So that 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. corresponded to country X. I'm just going to name it as country X, that particular country's time zone. One of the observations or conclusions that the government or the researchers came up with is that, well, the people who are attacking are doing this as a job between 9 to 5. That is what most of us do, right? When we want to go to work, we start our work at 9 o'clock, we finish the work at 5 o'clock, and then we go home. So the people who are attacking, they are not attacking a particular country because they do not like the country. They are just doing this as part of a job. They are paid by a particular government and they are kept on the payroll to basically do these attacks every day. 9 o'clock when they come in, start hacking into some foreign government, right? And try to find their secrets, try to get information about foreign companies. So all of this is happening essentially from 9 to 5 p.m. And this can happen over multiple years. And this has been going on in Australia for the last 5-6 years. And the government has actually acknowledged that this has been happening for several years. And this multi-year intrusion campaign is known as an advanced persistent threat. So a persistent threat means a threat that continues to happen. So, and hence it is called an advanced persistent threat or APT. And usually this is done by nation state actors because it's funded by a particular country, and these people are highly trained. They have a lot of resources, money available for them to continue to attack however long you want. And this is the reason why more and more countries are now putting a lot of resources into actually defending against these attacks. And in Australia, Australian government very recently has actually announced that they have a vision for the next few years of improving their cyber defense. So they are looking for people with cybersecurity skills to come and work in Australia who can actually do a good job of defending against these attackers or come up with techniques to defend against these attackers. Another type of actor is an insider. So this is very common. So an insider is a person who's already within a particular company, right? It could be an employee, it could be a contractor, it could be a business partner, somebody who already knows how that particular company works. And you have some inside information about the weaknesses of the company. And they can utilize that to launch an attack. Or it could be an employee who was fired because of incompetency or whatever, and the employee does not like that. Hey, I'm going to get fired. Now, let me do as much damage to this organization before I leave. There could be somebody who's compromised. Somebody could get bribed to disclose information, or they could be blackmailed to get information about a particular company. And then that can be utilized to launch an attack against a particular company. So these are known as insiders. So there are other actors as well. We'll not go into details of all kinds of threat actors because of limited time that's available, but you can have attacks that are coming from competitors. So there's a lot of cyber attack happening between one company and another company. So if you're a private organization and companies like Apple and Google, they are doing businesses in the order of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. So Apple is now $1 trillion company. When so many billions of dollars are at stake, you may want to hack your opposition and get some of their secrets, right? So that you can actually grow. So this is a big major threat. Organized crime. So the typical gangland, the gang lords that you would see in these movies, they don't do gang wars anymore the way you would see in movies before. Now they are moving online because the reward is more. You can make more money through cyber attacks, and it's less riskier because, hey, you're not going to get shot, right? You're just going to get caught if you are not careful how you're going to hack into somebody's account and steal their money. So organized crime is moving towards cyber attacks. So there could be brokers. So brokers are people who buy information or sensitive information from somebody and sells it off to somebody who wants to do damage to that other person. So these are known as brokers or middlemen. They just buy information about a particular vulnerability in a company and then sell that information off to somebody else. And finally, you have cyber terrorists. For them, their focus is about disruption and panic rather than actually promoting an ideology. They don't care whether their voice is heard. They just want to cause damage to a particular nation. And they just want to cause disruption. They want to create chaos. They just want to cause panic among people who are in a particular country. So these people are called cyber terrorists. We look at what kind of cyber attacks are out there, right? So we'll look at two types of cyber attacks. So we're not going to go into details of all the cyber attacks that are out there, but we'll specifically look at two broad categories. One is basically malware. The other is social engineering attacks. And social engineering attacks is particularly relevant today. What is a malware? So you would have heard this term quite a lot. What is malware? Malware stands for malicious software. Okay, so malware, the term comes from malicious, right? And ware comes from software. So that's malware. So it's a general term that refers to a wide variety of damaging and annoying software. So it's not a particular software. So it could be a range of softwares, could be categorized as malware. And these things enter a particular person's computer system without the consent of the owner, of the knowledge of that person, right? They won't even know, or the person would not have even given permission for that software to be installed into a particular computer. The way this particular malware would deliver a particular payload is they use some kind of threat vector. So we talked about threat vector at the start of the class, right? It's a technique that is utilized to do an attack. That is to deliver the payload. Essentially, they can use multiple threat vectors. So they could use a virus, they could send a worm, they could use a Trojan horse, they could use different types of threat vectors to actually get to a particular computer. And once that payload, the payload could actually be a virus, or the payload could be a worm, the payload could be a ransomware, or it could be an adware or rootkit, a logic bomb. These are examples of malwares, right? Virus, worms, Trojans, ransomware, crypto malware, spyware, adware, rootkits, logic bombs. Any of these things, if they enter your system, they can cause damage once they're involved. And I just want to quickly talk about ransomware before we go to the next slide, where we talk about viruses and worms. Ransomware is a very popular attack that is happening at present. So what a ransomware does is it would enter your system, and this malicious software would enter your system. And once it enters your system, it can start causing damage. And whenever you want, and once you identified that, hey, there's a damage being caused, now you want to remove this. But to remove this, it is very difficult to remove these systems. You may have to actually pay the person who actually infected you, and they will give you a method to remove that particular software, right? So we have, and one example of a ransomware is what is known as CryptoLocker. A CryptoLocker is, what it does is, once it gets into your system, it would encrypt your hard disk and basically lock your computer. When you try to log into your computer with your password, you won't be able to log into that computer anymore. And you'll say, well, please call this number. Then they will tell you how to log into your own computer. And you'll be like, well, this is my computer and my password, it's not working. And then when you call that number, and what they will say, well, we've taken control of your machine. Now you have to pay us $100, $1,000, $1 million, depending on what your computer is worth, right? So if your computer is worth only $1,000, you're not going to pay $10,000. But even if the computer is worth only $1,000, the data that is stored in your computer might be worth $10,000 for you. There could be photos of your family. There could be information about your bank details, your personal details. All this information is contained in your computer. So you don't want to lose all of those things. So then you may think this information is actually worth some value. So you may be willing to pay $10,000 to actually get access back to your computer. So this is known as ransomware. And this is very popular right now. And it's a very difficult problem to solve as well. So once your computer gets infected with the ransomware, it is very, very difficult to remove it. So most of the time you just have to end up paying the ransom, or you basically say, well, I'll throw away my machine. I'll have to start with a new machine. Let's look at a couple of types of malwares. One is virus, the other one is worms. So these are two malwares that you guys would be mostly familiar with, or at least you would have heard about these terminologies, right? You would have heard, well, my computer has a virus, right? You'd have heard this quite a lot. So to protect your computer from virus, install this antivirus software. So you install Norton antivirus or Kaspersky antivirus. So what is a virus? Virus is basically a malicious code, computer code, that reproduces itself on the same computer. Essentially, it's a piece of code. Once it comes into your code, and once you launch that virus, what it will do is it'll replicate itself within that particular computer, and it'll copy itself to other files within the computer. And then if you physically copy it to a different machine, it'll go to a different machine. It won't spread automatically. If you send an email from your machine to another machine, then it can spread, but it won't send a message by itself. But what it will do is it will just spread within your computer and will infect a lot of files. And once it has infected a particular file, and then when you send this file to somebody else, or when you copy this file on a USB disk or a CD drive, and then take it to to another computer and insert your USB disk in there, or if you copy that file, you email that particular file to a friend, and when they download that file, their computer gets infected. So this is a virus. Next, you have a worm. A worm is basically a malicious program that uses computer networks to replicate. So unlike a virus, a worm can actually replicate itself. So it doesn't really need a user to actually initiate the spreading, right? So a worm doesn't infect a particular file, but it basically exploits a vulnerability within an application or a particular operating system. And then it would basically go from one computer to another computer. Now, then what's the purpose of a worm if it's not going to replicate itself or infect a particular file? Well, a worm can be utilized to leave a payload, which could be a virus. So you can use a worm to deliver a virus. You can use a worm to deliver another form of threat, or it could be a crypto miner, right? Or it could be maybe even a ransomware software. You want to sneak it in through. You can use a worm to get it through, right? So worms spread using the network, and it basically leaves behind a particular payload that can infect that can cause harm to your infected systems, right? So that's the difference between a virus and a worm. Okay. Is everyone okay with the concepts of what is a virus, what is a worm? Are we all going okay? Just click yes if things are going fine and you're able to understand what is being explained.
Dr. Bernard,
okay.
Just a reminder, as you asked me to say it's been half an hour. So I'm just reminding. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Slavka. All right. So there's a couple of questions. Okay. We are at the halfway mark. So I've got to actually speed up a little bit. So Thank you. So we got about, actually I'm exactly at the halfway mark. So I'm just going to quickly speed up a little bit more, and I'll try to get all the questions at the end of the class rather than in between, because I was hoping to answer some questions as well. Slavka just interrupted me. So I'm just going to keep pushing along. So let's look at the next type of attack, right? But don't worry, I'm not going to be super fast. I'll pace myself enough for you to actually understand what is being taught. Okay, so don't worry. I'll make sure that you guys actually get most out of this class. Okay, all right. So the next category of attacks are known as social engineering attacks. So social engineering basically means gathering of information for an attack by relying on the weakness of an individual. That is what a social engineering attack does. So here there are two techniques to actually gather this information. So anytime you want to attack somebody, you want to first get some information. How am I going to attack? What is their weakness, right? So you want to attack a particular individual. You want to attack a person, you have to understand how that person thinks. What is it that drives that person? So for example, if you like watch war movies and everything, you may see a particular general in an army will say, you know what, I know what this person's enemy's weakness is. I can manipulate this person into giving out some information, right? So like counter espionage, you can go and ask a spy and get information about that particular country from that spy and extract the information using some kind of psychological approach. That's one technique. Or you can just use some physical procedures. So what are these psychological approaches and physical approaches? A psychological approach is to persuade a victim to provide an information or to take action. So one of the things that they can do is actually, I can first gain your trust, right? So I can come to you as an attacker, but you don't know I'm an attacker. I can contact you online and then offer you some help with whenever you're stuck with something, right? And I can offer you help and you'll say, oh, this is a very helpful person. He's helped me. And over time, I will gain your confidence. Once I've gained your confidence, then I can ask you to do things which you may not normally do, right? So you can first somehow get the person's confidence and kind of let them relax and then do the attack, right? So it could be impersonation. It could be what is known as phishing attack. It could be spam, hoaxes, watering hole attacks. There are different kinds of approaches. So one of the things that, for example, the Twitter hacker who used to actually gain access to all these accounts was he used the psychological approach, right? He impersonated himself as a colleague or a co-worker of one of the employees who was working in Twitter, who had access to other employees who had information about how to access these particular, these famous people's accounts, right? So you said, I work in a particular company, I'm your colleague, and Twitter is a big company. So it is very easy for, if you know what you're doing, to actually impersonate and say, and you may even, yeah, this person is a colleague. He's emailing me from my company, from a company email. So this is a real person within my company, and he can provide information. And this guy is basically a 17-year-old kid from Florida. He used this information he gained from one of the employees in Twitter to hack into another employee's account in Twitter. And using that information, he gained access to all the accounts. So he basically did multiple attacks. So first attack was to gain the confidence of one person, and using him and using his account details, he contacted somebody else who had more authority to, or more security privileges to access basically all the accounts of these famous people, right? But they still made some mistakes which led to them being caught, right? So these are known as psychological approaches. You can also use physical procedures. So physical procedures are basically dumpster diving and tailgating. Dumpster diving is basically digging through trash. So you can go look into a dumpster and you can find information. You've seen this in spy movies as well, where all these spy agencies, agents would go and look into the trash of people and get information of them, right? The same thing can be done electronically. So you can look at all the discarded USB drives. So whenever you discard a USB drive, you can take that, and in there might be some information which they can utilize to hack into some account. And from there, you go from one account to the next account to the next account. That is known as dumpster diving. Another one is tailgating. It's basically you just following one person in through a physical access door. If there's a secure building, when one person is entering a secure building after tapping or swiping their access card, somebody else could basically walk behind that person quickly before the door closes, right? So this is known as tailgating, okay? So these are physical procedures for attacks. So let me just quickly, so if you guys have a phone with you, if you're watching this on a computer, laptop, and you have a phone with you, you can quickly scan the QR code or go to a link called cybermap.kaspersky.com. I will show you a real-time map of all the cyber threats that are happening right now, right? So, and roughly when you look at it, you will see an image like what you are seeing on screen right now, where essentially what it's showing is right now, there are millions and millions of attacks that are happening every second, right? Every second in the world, there are millions and millions of attacks that are currently happening. And because of this, we are really vulnerable. And because of the amount of skills required to actually do these attacks, if you think you are safe online, you're not. So there are so many attacks happening every second. There are millions of attacks happening, and you could be one of the targets of that particular attack, right? It could be through somebody trying to access your email. It could be somebody trying to access your social media account, or it could be somebody just Googling your information to find information about you to actually do a psychological attack, right? So if you look at our vulnerability, we are really exposed. But the good thing is there are techniques that are available out there, or some principles that need to be followed when you want to defend against these attacks, right? So you have an approach. So we look at the 5 fundamental principles for defending. So the first principle is layering, second, limiting, diversity, obscurity, and simplicity, right? So these are basically 5 fundamental security principles for defending against attacks. What is layering? Layering is basically you think that if you have an information that needs to be secured, you keep it inside multiple layers, right? So it's just like putting your most valuable thing inside a particular box, right? And inside one box, you put that box into a different box, and then you lock that box up. And then you put the second box into a third box, then you lock that third box up, you put the third box into a fourth box, and you lock that box up. This is the same approach that is utilized in layering. And people in security community, we say that security is like an onion, right? So you know what happens when you deal with onions? When you cut it, it makes you cry because it is a painful process of actually creating the security. But once you cut the onion and you cook it and you start eating it, it's worth it, right? So it's worth it. By using the layering approach, it is worth layering it, because ultimately you want to protect your data, right? So the next approach is limiting. Limiting is you're basically limiting the access to information. So if you limit who can access your information, then you're reducing the threat against it, right? So now basically what you're saying is only authorized people are supposed to have access to it. If you are not authorized to access a particular information, you should not be given access to that information. That's the principle of limiting. Next is diversity. It's very similar to layering. In layering, you can have the same type of you can put one box inside another box, which is the same type. But in diversity, when you're putting in multiple boxes, you may want to use different types of boxes. First time you have a cardboard box, put it inside a steel box. Put the steel box inside inside a iron box. Use a different type of lock. Or the third one, use a combination lock, or use a different kind of locking mechanism. Use different types of security or layers, so that if a person gets through the first layer using some technique, they have to use a new technique to get to the next layer. And if they compromise the second layer, they have to use a completely different technique for the third layer. So using this diversity approach combined with layering will make sure that your data or information is kept secure. Next, you have obscurity. Obscurity is basically saying that don't let anyone know how we are storing information. What kind of computer you're using, what kind of operating system you're using, what version of operating system you're using, what brand of software you're using. So if an attacker knows what kind of computer you're using, it makes it easier for them to actually do the attack. So don't let people know what kind of things you're using, which is why for your browser, people say that be careful when you use a particular browser, and try to, if you want to anonymize, use a Tor browser, which basically anonymizes the type of browser you're using or the type of screen you're using. Even your screen size of your device will tell you what device you're using, right? And that is enough for an attacker to attack your system. The problem with obscurity is that this is not really the best approach. You cannot use obscurity on its own because it's depending on secrecy. And people are very bad at keeping secrets, right? So if I tell you, don't tell your friend I'll tell you a secret, don't tell anybody. So you'll straight away go and tell your best friend and the most trusted friend, hey, somebody told me the secret, right? Oh, only I know about this. Well, you just told somebody else. Now that person knows. And that person will go and tell somebody else who's their best friend, who they trust. Say, nobody knows about this. Only I know. So already 3 people know about this. So this is the problem with obscurity, because depending on people to actually keep a secret. And finally, you have simplicity. And this is relevant not just from a cybersecurity perspective, for any system that you create. Now, security is a complex field, right? You want to secure something, the techniques that are used is generally complex. So the kind of solutions that you use should generally be simple from the inside. So if you create a complex security solution, what will end up happening is people who are supposed to use the system may feel like, well, this is too much to use. It's too complicated. I'm not going to follow these procedures. For example, you have 2-factor authentication. You're asked to enter your password. And then when you enter a password, you're supposed to get an SMS and with a code on your phone, and you're supposed to enter the code as well. You have to do 2 steps to access your on account. But how many of you actually do this? Most of you just won't bother with it because it's too complex. I don't want to do 2 steps. It's easier by just entering the password. So now if the system is too complex, people may not end up using it, right? So the system should be simple, but it should, from an attacker's point of view, it should be very complex. So attackers should not be able to gain access to the system. So there's a principle that I have used for my own personal life when it comes to any complex problem. Whenever I'm trying to create a solution, always remember KISS, right? And it's easy to remember, just KISS, which means keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it simple. And this is very important for security as well. So which brings us to the last topic for the day, which is social media and cybersecurity. So today, 3.81 billion people use social media worldwide, right? So that is almost 50% of the population. So, and you're spending nearly 2.5 hours on social media and social messaging every single day. Well, this is a estimate of people who even have accounts, but they don't really use it, right? But people who are actually using it, use it for much more than 2.5 hours. So this is on average, right? So for you as a person who's using social media, you have to be careful. You have to think about your privacy. Never click enter. So you are actually keep making yourself vulnerable to attacks without even realizing it. So what you're doing is, for example, when you check into a particular place, a cafe, so you went to a cafe, you had a great breakfast or lunch or dinner, and then I want to take a photo of this meal. You'll take a photo, you post it on social media and say, just checked into some fancy restaurant, I'm having a great time. What is happening right now? You're having a great time, but you're telling the rest of the world or all your friends that you are not at home. My home is open for attack. Somebody please come in and come into my home, open and come in, come to break into my home and steal whatever you like, right? So don't put yourself in a position where you are giving away information to the rest of the world, which could compromise your security, right? Always look at your privacy settings. Who are you sharing this information with? Are you sharing this only with your friends? Are you sharing this publicly? If it's public, the whole world can see it, right? You're just sharing one post about which cafe you went to is enough for a person who's sitting on the other part of the world to know your name, your location, which area that, like your home location or which area that you generally live in. And this is, and generally if you're putting your photo, you can find out what age group you're part of, which age group you belong to. A lot of information is already available, whether you're male, female, all this information can be utilized to create an attack against you. Okay. So when you're working on cybersecurity or on social media, always be careful or mindful of your security, right? So just to recap, because I think I've already taken more than 5 minutes extra. So to recap, security is basically a process that keeps you safe, free, and away from danger, right? And the trade-off for security is that you're giving away convenience. So the more security you need, you try to achieve, the more you give up on your convenience, right? We learned about threat actors. So threat actors are individuals who launch attack against other users and their computers. So you don't really need a highly skilled person to do this. So it could be, even without a skill, you can launch an attack against somebody. Could be script kiddies, hacktivist, nation state actors, insiders, competitors, cyber terrorists, brokers. These are all threat actors. Then we briefly looked at types of attacks, which is malware, social engineering, and within malware, we briefly looked at viruses and worms, and even ransomware. In social engineering attack, we looked at psychological approach versus physical approach, right? So we didn't go into phishing, spam, and everything because we don't have time for it, but we can. I'm happy to take those questions at the end. Then how can we even defend against these attacks, right? So you can use layering approach, limiting, diversity, obscurity, and simplicity. Layering means you have multiple layers of security. Limiting means you stop the information from being shared to people. Diversity, use different types of layers or different types of security measures. Obscurity, don't tell anyone what kind of system you're using. And simplicity, whatever security solution that you're providing, keep it simple. Don't use any complex systems. Okay. So that's it for today's lecture. I was hoping to get into a bit of story about the Trojan War. I'll briefly give you one simple principle. And this is important because security has a lot to do with the mythology of the Trojan War. The Trojan War happened between the Greeks and the Trojans. And the way the war was won was when the Greek were losing the war, and Greek were not able to, when they were attacking Troy, they were not able to get into Troy because they had a massive defending wall and they were not able to breach the wall. So what the Greeks did is they created a big horse, and all their mighty soldiers, the Greek heroes, they hid inside the horse, and they left the horse in front of their the Trojans' gate, and all the rest of the army just went away. Then the Trojan people, the Trojans, what they thought is, hey, somebody has actually left a big horse, and Trojan people used to think they used to worship horses. They were big horse riders. So they thought, okay, this is an offering from the Greek for the gods, and it's a peace offering. So we will take this horse inside our gates, and we will celebrate the end of the war. They took the horse, took it inside. And night, what happened is the soldiers that were hiding inside the horse, they came out and they opened the gates from inside. And the whole Greek army just walked right in and killed off the Trojans. So the moral of the story is that the security, you can use whatever security techniques you want to put up, right? You can put up the biggest wall possible. But if you as a user is not careful about how you use the how you interact with the digital environment, if you bring in something into your computer, you are the weakest link. You can bring something into your computer and you plug that in, then you're exposing yourself to an attack. If you do not follow the security principles or the protocols that are being put in to keep you secure, then you're making yourself vulnerable to an attack, right? So just keep that in mind. Ultimately, you are responsible for most of your digital security. So always be vigilant, but don't panic, okay? So that's it. Thank you all for attending the lecture.
So many people commenting how great knowledge you have and how happy they are that they have this opportunity to listen to you and learn so much. So I'm really so appreciative of your time. This was just amazing. So extra time given to the star of cybersecurity, I think is well spent time, isn't it, guys? I think he deserves like the thumbs up because it was amazing lecture. Now, some time from Carla, who agreed to share her time to talk a bit more about Kent Institute and let you know what the school is about, what they offer, and how you can become part of this amazing place and have opportunity to listen to lecturers like Dr. Benoit, because you had today not only masterclass about cybersecurity, but you had a small taste of how classes are delivered at Kent Institute Australia and what our students are receiving and how much they can learn. So right now, off to Carla. Carla, good luck, and we are waiting for your presentation.
So, well, yeah, thank you, Swafka. It was actually it was really, really good. I have to say, like, yeah, Dr. Bino was really, really great and big learning from that presentation. Definitely it was just amazing, as you mentioned. Well, so yeah, as I can see, it's a really big group. That's really good. We're so excited that you guys actually join us. Very multicultural. And actually, it's something that is really nice because it goes along with what we are like at Kent. As you can see actually in the photo, that's one of our college based in Sydney. And you can see the multicultural of international students that we have. First of all, well, yeah, as already Swafka mentioned, I'm Carla. I'm originally from Mexico. So yeah, another country to add onto the list. And yeah, so we are Kent Institute Australia. I will go a little bit through about who we are. So basically, we have been for already 30 years in the industry, in the education industry in Australia. So that means we have a lot of experience on it. We provide either vocational courses, which is certificates, diplomas, and advanced diplomas, but also we offer bachelor courses. And actually, it goes a little bit aligned with what Binoy was telling. He's one of our lecturers. We have one of our courses, it's Bachelor in Information Technology. So it's really good. As you can see, you know, like we are very focused on the quality of our classes and our lecturers. So, and this is all for you guys. We also have 2 campuses, pretty much in Sydney and in Melbourne. And we are fully governed accredited courses recognized by the Australian Qualification Framework. As I already mentioned, well, we specialize in information technology, business, and accounting. And you'll be able to see in there our 2 campuses. They are very well located in the heart of the city, so you're gonna love it. We have in Sydney and Melbourne. And yeah, so you will be surprised because, I mean, apart just from, like getting a lot of knowledge and academic, or not academic wise, you will also be having a lot of like good experience. You're going to create the best experience of your life of studying abroad, which is one of the things that I can see. For example, that our students are so excited. Like I can see how they grow since the time they arrive to Australia into the time that they get graduate. Like they can meet friends from all around the world. They increase their confidence. They develop this passion of learn and travel. So it's a lot of good benefits of also studying Australia. And of course, like as we love what we do, so we do it great. And that's the reason why we always think to organize things just taught on the students, because in the end of the day, you are the most important for us. And as you can see, so aligned to what I was saying, to the experience of the students. So basically all the student support that we offer to our students, you can read it in there. So basically we give a lot of student mentor programs. We will organize English workshops. We're gonna having like leading programs as well, which it will give you guys like extracurricular certificates that you can actually add to your CV. We also run multiple workshops, like for well-being and mindfulness, so that you guys can feel all the time that you're welcome. Like if you have anything to share, to say, there's someone here to listen to you. And we also offer a career hub portal, which is for life. So pretty much you're going to be able, to build up your CV, to have interview simulators. So you're going to have a lot of support from us. So it's going to be a really good experience from you guys. And also we're going to give a big extensive resource, which is LinkedIn Learning. So basically this is a professional online course taught by industry experts that you're going to be able to see on our Moodle. If you can see in the screen, so that's pretty much how it's going to be looking like. You guys are going to have an account and you're going to have your own portal where you're going to be able to access all this support. So going into the following, so as I already mentioned, so we are offering bachelor courses. So basically we divide it in three, which is Bachelor of Information Technology, which our lovely lecturer, Dr. Binoy, he runs some of the classes. We have the specialization actually in cybersecurity. We also run Bachelor of Business with 5 specializations, which will be the ones that you already can see there. But the very last one, it's a double specialization. So that's pretty good because in the end, you're gonna get a marketing and a management specialization. And on the last part, so it's gonna be Bachelor of Accounting, which we are recognized by professionals, but accounting bodies in Australia. So you can actually, even afterwards, you could be eligible to be part of those bodies as a member. So you will be asking probably, so how could I enroll at Ken? Well, so pretty much it's very simple, to be honest. So the eligibility that we request is that you guys can have a successful completion of Australian Year 12 or equivalent. I mean, you're gonna need to check in your country what's the equivalent, but basically some of the time it's pretty much like high school or a little bit above. You will need to have an IELTS Academic 6.0 and no less than 5 on each band. And as you can see, so if I mention there is BIT, so it stands for Bachelor of Information Technology. And if it's BBS or BBA, it's pretty much Bachelor of Business or Bachelor of Accounting. And during this course, so in Australia, bachelor courses are delivered for 3 years, which basically means 24 units in total. And we're gonna be including breaks, of course, because we all want to, enjoy Australia. And this is one of the biggest reasons that you're here is also, like to enjoy the country and travel along with studying and, meeting friends and having this great experience. So we have 3 different intake dates, which is pretty much March, July, and November every single year. So this is pretty much like studying dates. So those are the days that you could enroll and start studying with us. So in terms of, as I mentioned at the beginning, so apart from delivering bachelor courses, so we also deliver vocational courses. So you will be wondering what is vocational. So basically in Australia, we call it VET courses, which is pretty much stands for vocational education training. But this is mainly, probably you might be knowing more like better as diplomas or certificates or even advanced diplomas. So you're gonna have the multiple courses. So basically I focus on IT, but also focus in business. So basically for IT, it's gonna be more focused on website, digital media, IT itself. And in terms of business, so we're gonna be looking after marketing, accounting, leadership and management, and project management. So there's a lot of multiple options that you can have to choose. So that is really, really, really good. So, and the same, so how could you enroll? So it will be pretty much similar to bachelor. The only difference is that in this case, you're gonna need to have an IELTS academic of 5.5 with no less than 5.0 or an equivalent. And you're gonna see in there that actually our intakes, so because before I mentioned for bachelor is three times during the year. So for vocational courses, we have 9 intakes during the year. So pretty much is during the whole year, except for June, November, and December. So that gives you guys like a little bit of more flexibility. If you're planning to come to Australia, at least you have a little bit more of dates so that you can organize better your time. And also, so you're gonna see that all our courses are either on campus, and because of the current situation that we're living, because due to COVID, so now we're just only running online, but this is only because of these circumstances. So moving into the next one. So as I mentioned, it's pretty simple. Like anyway, if you have any question, if you would like to enroll, if you would like to join us, so the main documents that you will need is pretty much filling out the application form that we have, attaching like a copy of your passport, academic qualifications, English level documentation, and your CV. So this is pretty much so that our admissions unit can assess, and then you guys can start studying with us. But anyway, as I already said, you may have a lot of questions. I mean, if you're deciding to go and study abroad, and so you can contact me anytime. So well, as I said at the beginning, so I'm Carla Perez, and that's my email. So just in case you guys would like to have more information about it, because in the end of the day, every single case and every single student is different. So even if this is just general information, you may have specific questions depending on your circumstances. So I'm really happy to receive all your questions and emails through that email, and then I will be happy to reply all of those. And last but not least, so we organize at Ken a special gift for all our masterclass attendees. So hopefully you guys will love it. So pretty much, we're gonna be waiving the $250 enrollment fee, that's the value in Australian dollars. So that's pretty much, it's very simple. Like the way that you just need to get it, it's with 3 simple steps, the ones that are there. So basically to all the attendees that just stay until the very end, the second step, it will be, you will need to send us just the application form before this year finish to the email that it's sent, so that we can actually give you this enrollment fee waive. And then you will also need to attach, apart from the application form, you will need to attach the e-certificate, all right? The ones that we're gonna send you because you guys attend and you were so engaged with us. So you just have to do these 3 simple steps and just send it to us. And I mean, the good thing is that you also have to remember that we provide scholarships, so they are available. Feel free to send me emails if you have questions again, because I know probably right now we're a bit short on time. I don't know, Safka. But yeah, anyway, we'll be happy to solve any question that you may have. And remember to follow us on social media. We're happy, like myself and the rest of the team, we will be happy to solve any questions, to contact you guys. So we have, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, so that you can add us, you can tweet us, you can Instagram, whatever it is, because now we're all connected into multiple social media. So yeah, feel free to contact. And yeah, happy to go back to you, Swafka. How are you?
Hello, I'm still good. Amazing, Carla. Thank you so much. So now, finally, after all this information that we received, it's time for us to answer who join us and spend with us. So I think we might just wave a bit